So we'll get started. Thank you again for spending time with us. So Esha, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Esha Chatterjee. I'm the Associate Director for Curricular Assessment at Santa Clara University, and I got my PhD in sociology from Stanford in 2023, and I've been here since last year.
Yeah. And then me, I'm the director. I know I said all of that and I never introduced myself, but I am Divya Bheda. I'm the director for educational assessment at Santa Clara University. So I oversee curricular and co-curricular assessment, and I've been in this field of assessment and evaluation for about 2 decades now. And so just, yeah, hello and welcome and thank you again. So this work that we are sharing again has arisen from the work that we've been doing across campus, and we welcome your feedback. I'd share this with Shelley in the beginning. We welcome your feedback and thoughts as you kind of internalize what we're sharing and find useful, right? Okay, so the learning outcomes in the agenda for today, we'll go over the learning outcomes. We want to talk about the relevance of this work. Why is it important? Why now? We want to offer a framework for you to consider using another framework that I have written about. And so we will share that with you in a little bit. Then we want to offer you examples and ways to think about how you can introduce or design or craft program level learning outcomes. How can you think about it at the course level? What should your assignment prompts look like? What should the evidence you collect should be? And then look at curriculum maps as well. And so what should all of that look like in terms of policy and best practice and resources? So with that, the 3 learning outcomes that we crafted for this particular session is that we want you to be able to identify key competencies for AI literacy within your own institutional program or course context, right? So at whatever level you're thinking about it, be very intentional about what those competencies are, and how do we arrive at those competencies. So we will hopefully get you there through this session in terms of thinking through that. The second is we want you to be able to apply those strategies to design your own learning outcomes and then build that into curriculum maps as well. And then the third is we want to offer a few frameworks and rubrics for you to consider, some templates that you can pull from. Again, after this session, feel free to email us. We will also share the deck. And so, how can you encourage students to use AI in the way you want them to, in the way that's best practice according to the way you define it, right? And so with that, I will hand it off to Esha. And if y'all, I can see a lot of folks have been introducing themselves in the chat, and so we are moving on to a question, and feel free to answer in the chat or unmute yourself. What is your greatest challenge working with AI in your own context? And it can be phrases, bullet lists, however you want to share it. Sarah, when you're saying getting instructor buy-in, is it instructor buy-in to use AI, to clarify use of AI, yes. Yeah, okay. Yep. Elizabeth, you're not alone in saying, figuring out where to start, right? Because it's just the field is evolving so quickly. Before you think that you know the answer, we also are a little nervous. We're like, as we share this, we don't know what now. Agentic AI has come into being. Is all of this relevant, right?
Yes, Karen, completely in agreement.
Yeah, policy and integration. Yep, working with faculty, Olivia. Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, it's kind of, the analogy that I could use is it's a tool, like if you think about SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics. Yes, you need to know survey design. Yes, you need to know the right principles, but then it's also about learning the tool really well to figure out what it can and can't do. So you're simultaneously learning multiple things, and there's already imposter syndrome, and there's constantly we have to keep upskilling and the feel and the need for that. And so it's okay, how do I not make a faux pas or make a mistake? So thank you for sharing all of these challenges that y'all are facing. It's we're all in the same boat. You're not alone in what you're dealing with. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Asha, and we'll keep this conversation. Yes. Oh my God, I love that analogy. Sierra. Um,
Yes.
yes. Okay. So I will hand it off to Asha.
So after that, we want to establish the context in which we want to contextualize what is going on. So AI is everywhere. It's like a bullet train. Sarah, I'll just steal that because I love it. So AI is everywhere. So if you say do not use policies, they become inequitable, unforeseeable, and with that, we need to make expectations teachable and accessible. So we need to move in that direction. So there are issues of access and equity. Students have uneven access to tools and time and support. What we must avoid is creating AI haves and have nots. So you should make a explicit course policies to use AI, and accessibility and privacy constraints vary by tool. So that's also another consideration that you need to make when you're making all of this teachable. So
Yeah. And that's the biggest, like I for me as a, the equity piece is a big thing, because a lot of times we say, oh, all students are using AI, but then all students may not know how to use AI well. All students may not have a paid AI account. So then it becomes a matter of who has the access and who has the experience in using AI. So if we allow AI, or we say, yeah, okay, we can use AI, then how are we making sure that there's equitable use of it and knowledge of it? So yeah.
yes. The second piece of it from this is like making hidden and null curriculum explicit, because people are panicking about AI, and as a result, what happens is we are nervous that our students are using AI, but we don't know, how that is being used. So unspoken norms about AI use is disadvantaging our students, and if we never teach AI literacy, we will, it'll be as if it doesn't matter. So that's
Which
the
will then
second.
make us obsolete. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and which can make us obsolete, and then that can even force inequities, because some students may have lovely knowledge of AI and some may not. So that's important. So the third piece is integrity and assessment. So that is the guidance on the use of AI responsibly. And I did see in the chat that some of you mentioned that the guidance on use of AI responsibly is something we should work towards. We should keep that in mind when we are talking to students, when we are talking to faculty members, because they are very nervous. Are our students cheating? What aspect are they using AI in their assignments? And I've had faculty members say that, okay, some of my students, I teach a statistics class. So if my students input my questions into the AI tool, it'll spit out right answers. So the guidance on the use of AI responsibly is very important. And what we feel following from this is assignments and student work needs to be an accessible process for transparency, judgment, etc. And rubrics should reward for critical evaluation, because AI shouldn't become a substitute for human thinking, critical reflection, any of this. So that's kind of the framework where we should be
Using
going in
it.
the direction of and
Yep.
using. And Divya, did you want to add anything to this?
No, I think you've got it covered. I think,
Yes.
and I've been, yeah, I'm also working on the chat, so that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now we begin with the why. So we have two components here, which is what we propose and what we need. So what we propose is make AI literacy explicit in program learning outcomes, so that's the key goal, because I keep telling faculty here that do not shy away, do not get panicked that my students are cheating, make AI explicit. Because if you are concerned about students using it, make it explicit, bringing that earlier slide component that make the hidden curriculum explicit. So what we need to do, what should we do is the next part. So align assignments and rubrics to measure responsible AI use, and then do a adapt a policy language that supports innovation as well as integrity. Because faculties members and us at the office of assessment, we are very very consider we are very concerned about academic integrity being maintained. So that's the piece of it.
Yeah.
And then the
Sorry,
the
one second. Let me just move
yes.
it. Sorry.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we now we are moving in the direction. So we laid the context of this. Now we are moving in the direction of what is the framework to consider. And this framework through multiple this emerged as a result of multiple conversations with faculty members, with students, with other campus partners. And Divya and I, we've laid out the context, and now we are going to say what is the basic and or the baseline framework for AI
Yeah.
literacy.
And
So
and I
this
just want to, Esha, before you continue, I just want to also say that there are lots of frameworks out there. I mean, there are lots of people now, like, trying to figure out how do we do this, or how do we think about this. So this is just one. If you all have other ones that you all already use, feel free to. We are all here to learn. So it's not a one-way street. So feel free to share it in the chat
yes.
or unmute yourselves. However, yeah.
Yes, thank you. So, with that, this framework that we are proposing that relies a lot on decisions that students take. So, why use AI? Is there efficiency versus learning trade-offs? Augment critical thinking, purpose aligned to outcomes. So all of these are answers to why students might be using AI, and there may be many more to this. So when the next question is, when is it appropriate? So when the task and context, the permitted versus prohibited use, and you must know what is your own, which goes back to what we emphasized earlier, is the question of academic integrity. So with that said, after the main principles that we consider here are equity, transparency, critical judgment, academic integrity, and how can we use it well. So prompting AI should become like an iterative practice and not as a replacement of human thinking. Evaluate the output against accuracy bias, because AI is very, very well known for being hallucinatory, like hallucinates a lot, makes up
Mm-hmm.
things, makes up sources, makes up evidence. So, and the third thing, which is very critical, and I was talking to faculty members who are concerned about this, is ask students to document and attribute AI use. So, try to institute a good log, like we write bibliography for academic papers. AI use should become like that kind of a log. So, we are able to track the use of AI, and we are able to maintain academic integrity. So I think this baseline framework would get at all the anxieties that folks are facing towards AI use.
Yeah, I want to build on what Asha is saying to say when we're talking about making a hidden curriculum or a null curriculum explicit, I think this is a great starting point as a framework, at least we think it is, to have that conversation with students saying, if this is your checklist, saying, why am I using AI? When is it appropriate? So in my class, how much is it appropriate, and how much can I use it, how much can I not? So if a faculty member is not clear about that in their course, then encourage students then to say, can you please share with me, is it prohibited in this course, can I use it a little bit, can I, so we want students to go through this thinking, this logic thinking, and make decisions on all of these elements. And maybe you have more. As you look at this, it may prod your thinking to say, what else do I want my students to be thinking about in terms of AI? So it's a nice framework, easy to follow for even faculty to initiate a conversation to say, why are you using AI? How are you using AI? How to use it well, all of that. So, and I love, Sierra, that we were saying some things that you've already put in the chat. So, okay. So with that, so now when we think about AI learning and AI outcomes, we built it on VBHAASK, and most of us are familiar with skills and knowledge. Like we've often heard of that in Google searches, whatever. When we talk about learning outcomes, we say, what are the skills? What is the knowledge that you want students to be able to do or demonstrate? I wrote a paper for eLumen a couple of years ago where I flesh that out a little bit more to talk about behaviors, habits, attitudes, abilities, skills and knowledge. So I expanded it. And then since I've joined SCU, I also believe that, value Yesterday's, I don't know whether you all saw the article in Chronicle about moral education not being part of higher education, and so. I think values are important. Are we so if we were to think about student learning as having what are they learning in terms of a particular topic or a particular area, around what are the values that you want them to learn, what are the habits you want them to learn, what are the attitudes, what are the abilities you want them to gain, and skills and knowledge. So if you were to break that down, then when you think about AI from that framework, and this is actually would apply to even faculty who are struggling to figure out where do I even start with AI, it would be to say, okay, so what values do I want students to learn? I want them to understand the ethical issues with AI. I want them to understand the environmental impact of AI. So I want them to understand where is it paid, where is it not paid. I want them to understand the data that's being used to figure out the answers to the questions, right? Because it's all about, it's more quantitative, actually, more numbers than actual meaning making. It's about which word comes usually after which word, and that's how AI is using it. So it's very logic based thinking, right? So then you want to know behaviors. What behaviors do you want students to demonstrate around AI? That they can be transparent around use. That AI is not, I don't have to hide the fact that I use AI, right? Can I be transparent about how I used it, how much I used it, how much I didn't? What are the habits? That they have to engage in iterative prompt generation, that they have to figure out whether AI is producing reliable, non-hallucinogenic, that's for medicinal properties, but not non-hallucinating responses. I know when I feed a prompt to AI, and sometimes like 10 minutes later, if I feed another prompt, the same prompt to AI, sometimes it's generating different responses for the same prompt, and I'm happier with one, I'm not happy with the other, right? So what are the habits we want students to engage in around AI? What are the attitudes? And then if you build that longer in terms, what are the dispositions? Do we want students to just default to AI as their first, given that now Google, everything is now AI. It's no longer, it feels everything is like we already have the answer and AI is the right answer. And we know that that's not true. So how do we get students to figure out what their attitudes are, and how do we nourish and nurture curiosity and caution? What are the abilities, right? What tools? So if there are specific fields that each of you all are in, then how do we think about what are the abilities that we want students to be able to gain using AI? So it may be a particular tool, like all of us have to learn Google Slides or struggle with PowerPoint or struggle with whatever. What are the abilities in their particular field that they need to have to know that this is appropriate use of AI in my field, or this is not? Actually, AI has no knowledge. If you ask AI to talk about this particular field, it will not give you any information. So things like that. Skills, which is again, it goes back to, okay, do I have the skills to ask the question the right way for it to actually produce what I wanted to produce? Do I have the ability to evaluate the quality of what it delivers, right, as an output? And then knowledge. Knowledge is, okay, what is happening in the field of AI? What is happening in terms of agentic AI? What is happening in terms of policies that are being crafted, biases that are inherent? So within this framework, we have built using this framework, we have built some outcomes tied to it. And so some of the example outcomes that we have built and crafted, and you all can craft so many more using this. So please use VBHAASK as a lens to think about what is it that you want students to be able to do or demonstrate, and then craft your learning outcomes specific to AI. So around AI abilities, what do you want students to, or AI competencies, what do you want students to be able to do or demonstrate around VBHAASK? So the examples here that we have shared is, if you want students to explain appropriate versus inappropriate uses of AI for any task. If you want students to be able to critically evaluate AI output for accuracy, bias, and ethical implications. And I know that's like multiple ideas folded into one, but it's a construct, so to speak. If you want students to be able to document prompts, decisions, and revisions to show a responsible process, I'm engaging in a good process. If you want students to apply course discipline standards for citation and attribution of AI assistance, right? So what are the things that you want students to learn? Think through that. These are just a few examples that we've started with, and hope it's a good starting point for you. Okay, so now so that was for AI learning. So that was around AI, thinking about AI use and student competencies around AI. Now, how do you infuse AI into program learning outcomes? Go for it, Asha.
Yes. So now we have put this together in two levels. So we'll start with the program level. So this is kind of the practical template that automatically emerges to all of us, which is like students will do something. So that's the verb that we plan to use, and then the AI context, which is where you can use it, and then introduce what ethics criteria, quality criteria, and the criteria for AI use. So some examples of that, is like critically evaluate AI information for accuracy, bias, and ethical implications. So a few days ago, we had a conversation with one of the faculty members who said, "Oh, you know what, Asha, I've heard my students generate essays out of AI, and saying." Evaluating aspects, but which I feel that these are things that these are not true. So we should teach our students to evaluate that. So these are some of the examples, like compare AI output with the sources, like cross verify the sources, because sometimes you may have like links to things provided, but they are not real, like they're not speaking to what it is. And we've had faculty members who have said that how do we teach students not to do this, because when I'm clicking on that link, yes, it's something different, but the link does exist. And use AI tools to generate options, codes, drafts. So basically, do things, use AI tools to generate options and document decision making involving critical thinking. So think along with AI is what this example gets us at, and then disclose and cite AI assistance according to course policies. And this is one thing, at research level, journals have started adopting, like you have to cite and disclose AI assistance. Like I have not used data analysis generated by AI. I have not used visualizations generated by AI. So we need to do that for course level, so that students who are in whatever stage of their study, they are able to use responsibly AI, and then explain the limits of AI systems within the discipline, like hallucination, data privacy. And this is one of the things I've told my students very often, that students that I mentor and work with, that do not feed any data onto AI, because you do not know where it is going to go, privacy and all of this.
Yeah, and this is even within closed systems, right? Even within closed systems, the idea that, oh, it's our institution, it can stay within our institution. It's still a question of, do we know the contract that was signed in terms of how, and we all know this with our Netflix, or we feel like sometimes, I feel sometimes like my Pandora or my Facebook is listening to me, and I'll be talking about something, it'll show up in Amazon. And so it's, again, we don't know what the back end contractual obligations are, and how much integrity there is in terms of ensuring data privacy. So that's something. And then I just wanted to share like a quick anecdote. A group of us nationally got together, and we've actually revisited and revised the 9 original principles of assessment that has guided a lot of the work that we've done for a few decades now. And we came up with the new 10 principles of assessment. It's called Accelerate. And I googled Accelerate because I was like searching for wanting to find a quick link to reference to insert into a proposal that I was submitting, and Google just gave me Accelerate with all rubbish, but citing the right link, right? And I was like, this is not what we wrote, this is not what it meant. And yes, you've used like synonyms and words, but your wordsmithing, and it was just nonsense. So it's good to keep telling students, to check what the actual meaning of what was written was, and all of that. So any questions so far before we move? If there is, I'm keeping a watch on the chat, so feel free to have them come in. Okay.
Yes, now we come to the sample language which you could adopt to your programs and use these as building blocks. So one of the competencies around AI learning is verification. So The sample outcome language could be something, the basic competencies we have highlighted here are analysis and implications, transparent processes, prompting and iteration, and disciplinary standards. So for verification, students will verify AI generated claims using disciplinary sources and document corrections. So this is very, very critical to teach students. Students will analyze against bias, harms, and ethical implications in AI outputs relevant to the task and the field of study. Then students will justify AI tool use choices. Like AI sometimes gives you choices too. So, students make it a transparent process. Students will explain gains and gaps with iterative prompt generation and modification. And students will be able to apply field specific norms for citation evidence, and this is authorship, all of this, and this is very, very heavily relying on disciplinary standards, as well as this talks about the academic integrity that we are all very, very important.
Thank you, Shelley, for the comment.
Yes. So this is the this is the
Yep. And again, we're not restricted to this, right? This is just a starting point for you all to think about what in my discipline and what is important to me from an AI learning perspective, as well as from the intersection, the Venn diagram of the my discipline and AI's use in my discipline. And so to think through that to figure out what your learning outcomes should be at the program level, right? Okay.
And then, this is a rubric, a snapshot of 4 criteria you could start with, because we started thinking about it in terms of this framework. So we've just started thinking, and this is a process. So we want to say that the 4 criteria that we consider important are accuracy and evidence, bias and ethics, transparency, judgment, and reflection. So you could, put it on a scale, emerging, proficient, and advanced, and then, accepts output without checking, verifies claims with sources, and then triangulates evidence and explains uncertainty. And these all of the advanced components, as you can very easily see, it implies a human thinking behind it. So nobody can usually, close the door and there is AI running it and it'll just go on. It's not like that. So human AI interaction, I think that is the key thing in this rubric where we want our students to go in the direction. And for bias and ethics, students will generally not consider the bias and harms of using AI. And at the course level, we want to move them in the direction where they identify the potential bias, and then at the advanced level, they're able to mitigate that. Then transparency, I know we have said this like probably 5 times already, and yet again, that, do not, if AI use is undisclosed, that is a problem, because it can result in plagiarism, it can result in faculty panicking that my students are cheating. And so teaching them to be proficient with AI tool use, because otherwise they're going to fall behind, and then demonstrate how they have used the tool. And as I mentioned, and this is a favorite phrase of mine, have process logs. I keep telling faculty here, please have process logs. Tell them to tell you where they have used AI. They may have just used it to refine language, because as a first generation immigrant scholar, I felt that when I was at grad school, it would be extremely useful to me if I had some kind of a tool to polish my language, writing what I wrote. And many students at the institutions I've been in have faced that they're not able to write good language, and probably that's only, if that's only the aspect you want them to use. But if you want them to reflect, do reflective thinking, then that should be prohibited, that you shouldn't allow AI to do that. And then finally comes what I already mentioned, which is judgment and reflection. So if they're relying on AI to decide and compose, that's not okay. Then, so it should move in the direction of using AI support and make independent choices. And then again, the human element, why, when, and how choices. So this is basically the rubric I think that we've been thinking about to start with when we are talking about learning outcomes and how assessments or student assessments relating to AI should begin with. Divya, did you want to add something to this?
I had a thought, but I think I lost it. It's there's a chemo fog, so if it comes back, I will share.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we come to the second level that I mentioned earlier, which is the course level assessments. So for course level assessments, align evidence to outcomes so that program assessment can aggregate across courses. So the evidence we could collect is AI annotated output and verification, process logs and version history, various drafts, and then justification memos for or reflection within assignments, and then rubric scores mapped onto program learning outcomes. And I think we'll get to this a little later. And then lastly, which is the reliability of output, which Divya, I think you already mentioned, because I know I've been talking to you so many times. I don't know if you've mentioned it to me, but giving 2 prompts to the AI in a span of 10 minutes, that can result in total different answers. And I think this is what it gets at. Like, check for reliability. We want to collect evidence towards that.
And I remembered what I wanted to say for the earlier slide, and that had to do with we've heard. Sorry, one second. I'm trying to go back. Yeah. I've often heard from faculty, where they'll say, oh, everything is now going to be in-person exams and everything, I'm taking everything offline. So how do we talk when we think about AI use? I don't know if many of y'all are tracking all the progress or lack of progress that AI is causing our world. But this idea that people who have been now disciplines who are doing research in AI are actually saying, and professionals who are doing research in AI are saying, software engineers are saying, like, actually doing work with AI, like all our company leaders want us to adopt AI and streamline, automate it. But to get there, it's actually so much extra work, because now I know my code, and then I have to look at AI and then figure out where all the code is, where it's messing up for it to this automatic code generation, right? So the idea would be, even when you think about judgment, especially when you think about judgment and reflection, it's how do you get students to say, was AI, I've had faculty who actually have like an assignment where they say, do it with AI, do it without AI, which one was quicker, right? So when we say AI is more efficient, was it really more efficient? Did it get you to where you needed to be? Was that the case? And so are there ways in which also there could be collaborative assignments? So think about assignment modality as well. When you think about a rubric, everything doesn't have to be a written paper, everything doesn't have to be a presentation, everything doesn't have to be an in-person exam. Like, we don't have to go to extremes. Are there ways in which we can get students to think about the discipline, but also think about AI use, think about the efficacy, and say, is this what's serving us? And now actually there's more and more research coming out that AI is not making life easier, it's actually creating more problems. And so there's all of that as well. So thanks, Asha.
Yeah, and Shelly, I want to acknowledge what you just now said in the chat. It's so good to get verification that you actually learn so much from the iterations and asking for process logs, because I am a big proponent. I keep telling faculty here that please ask them for process logs. Do not worry so much, because if you get their process logs, you'll learn about how they're thinking through the assignments. Thank you for sharing this. Okay, now the next part where we come to the policy language that supports innovation and integrity. So having a simple policy structure for all assignments. And, I was talking about this yesterday at an AI workshop that I went to. So we should think about in terms of what is permitted, what is recommended, what is required, and what is an absolutely no.
And this could be adopted at the individual faculty level, where they say this is okay, this is not okay. It could be adopted at the department level, again with academic freedom. However, folks want to think about this framework for adoption, please use it as you see fit.
Yes, and this is the thing that I've been talking to faculty members about. Like, what is permitted is brainstorming, outlining, or summarizing notes, code debugging, because AI does a pretty good job of code debugging when you're doing quantitative analysis kind of things, or writing codes for other things. What is recommended is documenting each step of the process and also disclosing the prompts and the iterations. And then, verifying the sources or verifying various kind of sources. And then what is required is a disclosure statement. And this has become a kind of a requirement for graduate programs where, all PhD and thesis level work, you have to have a disclosure statement. And prompt and process log, it's my favorite. That's there. And source verification is also important. And for recommended and required, there you're probably seeing a lot of overlaps, and that can be. And what is prohibited is undisclosed AI writing because of academic integrity and plagiarism, AI use on exams, entering in private data into tools. So these kind of things, we have to teach students that what is permissible and what is not permissible. And this is kind of the language around policies. And then, we have like a sample assignment statement.
Which we'll get to. Just a quick note over here that when we talk about academic integrity, and I used to work at Turnitin, and did a lot of work around coaching and consulting around academic integrity. There's a lot of research to show that when students use AI or have integrity violations, it's actually not a function necessarily of their ability. It's more a function of their either like that the pressure is too high, or that they have poor time management skills, or they have poor executive functioning skills. So it's more a reflection of that. And then again, in today's like screen time world, it's like I want to get done faster so that I can go have fun or whatever, right? So trying to figure out what, it's not that the student is not interested in learning, it's trying to figure out what is causing their use of AI, and again walking them through that initial framework and decision making of, should I be doing this? Is this the right way of doing it? Like, what am I getting out of this? It's the analogy that I use now with my 8-year-old is I keep saying, it's not about you getting an A, it's not about you whatever, it is about you want to build that muscle. So if you use a calculator for your math, like you're not building your muscle of knowing, whatever 8 plus 7 is 15. So the more you use, so how are you building your muscle? And so that's the analogy that we try. And so how do we have these explicit conversations with our students so that they understand that it's about our brain, our memory and muscle memory and brain use, rather than someone just doing it and it's for a grade and I'm just submitting it, right?
And to add on to that, Divya, the other thing I feel sometimes is students have they're like, okay, we are procrastinating, so and I'm at the last moment, let me use AI and do it.
And it feels high stakes. So a lot of times it feels high stakes that I need to get the grade. But if this is not about the grade, if this is about learning, how do we encourage students to think about it as learning? Is this what you really want to learn? Like, what did you learn? So yeah.
And then, you could use a assignment statement, and this is something that we thought of, which is like, you may use AI tools for the following tasks that are permitted, and you disclose the tool, include the brief prompt and process log, and verify the factual claims with the sources. And any AI use not disclosed will be treated as an academic integrity concern / plagiarism.
Yeah. And there are many templates out there in terms of, or many statements out there that are editable and usable. This is just one. So then now, what we've shared with you so far is program learning outcomes. We've shared with you, course learning outcomes, and have we shared? We have, right? Shared course learning outcomes. Yes, yeah.
Yes.
And then we've offered a policy statement, again editable, and ways to think about policy creation for faculty and for your students. And then now we come to curriculum mapping, right? And so it goes back again to, once you've used VBHAASK to design what is it that you want students to be able to do or demonstrate, you have your rubric accordingly, you have your learning outcomes accordingly, then you use the IDR framework however you want to do it. And if you notice over here versus in Esha's previous slide, there it was proficient and advanced. Over here we've used proficient as the final. So again, like your rubric can be, your scales can be different according to however you norm it, but the idea would be then you say, where is this happening? So this is just one among like 6 or 7 ways of mapping different. You can have an assignment to to learning outcomes map that is often very productive in terms of saying, oh my god, like we are not actually touching this at all in any of our courses, right? But the curriculum map is one place to start off with in terms of saying, where should this show up, in which course should this show up, how are we reinforcing it, how are we getting students to practice with it, so that it's not one and done, right? A lot of times we think in the whole students program, they get it here so they should know it, but where do they get to practice it, right? Where do they get to keep using that muscle of however we want them to use AI again and again and again, so that they get sharper with it and they can use it. So however, yeah, this one shouldn't be a P. Sorry, we got that wrong. But the idea would be you lay out your map, you lay out the learning outcomes, and then you map it accordingly. And make sure you do this exercise. And I would strongly recommend the assessment mapping exercise as well. We don't have that here. But to lay out your assignments against your learning outcomes, your AI outcomes, and then see which assignment is actually capturing it. Because a lot of times we mistake content for learning. So yes, we had students work on this activity and they should know this by now. But was that student able to use that knowledge or skill and show it again? It's kind of like singing, right? The analogy that I use is like, I had students sing in my class. Okay, great. But then are they able to sing, perform after the fact that they've sung with you? Now, are they able to do it again? And so are your assignments mapped to those learning outcomes? And if you find gaps there, that gives you an indication that you're actually not seeing whether students are able to use AI the way that you think you've trained them to use AI. And so then now Esha will go over how can you consider, the first one of the issues that you all raised was that came up in the chat was faculty, we don't know where to start. How do we introduce AI and how do we get faculty on board? And so this is just, again, one way of considering doing it.
Yes. So my idea was like, after speaking with faculty, because we don't know, they have voiced concerns that you've raised too, which is like, where do we start? So one of the things could be by having focus groups, cross-disciplinary focus group discussions, and then leading to drafting of AI related student learning outcome languages, and what are specific ethical risks and gray areas, and then basically go on to one-on-one consultations with the programs/courses, then pilot assessments and rubrics, like once we've given the samples that we've given you, and then review the evidence collected and iterate the process, and then again do a policy assessment alignment and see if it aligns with your needs, and if this is working for you, if this is not working for you, what is not working for you. So basically co-designing rubrics that fit accreditation expectations, mapping AI outcomes to CAMs and maps. That's very important. One-on-one support with faculty.
Yeah, and what we're calling CAMs and maps are basically curriculum alignment matrices and multi-year assessment plans. So
yes. So this is basically a way you can start.
Yeah, and we all know that culture change in higher ed is pretty slow. So it's starting off with the small wins, the easy wins. So however you do it, I think it's really important to establish like a small community of practice where you're like, let's try this together, let's make mistakes, let's fail forward together, right? If you don't have the space to do that, where you're able to say, we tried this and it was a complete utter failure, I think then y'all will be, we all are in a situation where it's high pressure. But if we are in a space where we say, okay, we're all coming together, we're going to draft these outcomes and we're going to test it out in these 1 or 2 courses because we have faculty who are on board, and let's design our assignments, let's do this collaboratively. I think there's a lot of joy in that work whenever you do it in collaboration, but there's also then successes you can celebrate together and bring more people on together. So in summary, Aisha, go for it.
Okay, so the summary is basically, we gave you a sample SLO language to use based on AI competencies that we thought were important, and then We told you how students could responsibly use AI. We gave you a rubric to consider. We gave you a policy language, which is permissible, required, prohibited, and then a curriculum map placement example. So that's pretty much what we have. And
yeah, I think the questions that we have for you is what are some thoughts that are coming up now as we have shared what we have shared? What are questions that are coming up, and where do you see challenges, or how can we support you as you're thinking through this? So feel free to note those in the chat. But this is there was a question.
Elizabeth, yes, we will share the slides at some point.
Yes. No, I had put it in the chat. So we are sharing, I think the organizers have asked for the deck and they are recording the session. So both, I think, will be available to all the participants, is my understanding. So you will find it there for sure. As soon as we are done here, we'll be converting it into a PDF and sending it your way. Sorry that we don't have a QR code, but a lot of times, like when we've done that, oftentimes it'll be on the phone and then it's lost, and so we just said no, anyway the organizers are putting it together. But you also have our email now if you'd like to just take this minute to send us an email saying I want the deck, and then we'll make sure we send it to you as well. Okay, so as the questions are coming in, okay, are there questions coming in? Okay, none so far. So I'll leave the final slide, but anything else that y'all want to think through, ideate. I think one thing I want to address, I know I said this in the beginning that, we are not, I know in our language while we were talking, we weren't as clear, but we are not pushing for AI use, right? Necessarily. It is about thinking through all of it. We are, our institution still discerning. But one thing is also when you say that this AI is moving at like a bullet train, something to consider is then where does AI, we are thinking through this, where is that foundational training that will have to keep getting updated, so someone's got to be on top of it, but where are the resources and the knowledge and all of that foundational knowledge that students understand what an LLM is, they understand like what is a hallucination, like they understand bias, right? So where is what is the scope and the boundary of and definitions of that foundational knowledge that all students, faculty and staff need to learn around AI, to then have an informed conversation that I don't want AI, I choose not to adopt AI, here's why, or I choose to allow this kind of AI use a little bit, right? But if we don't think through what is that foundational knowledge that all of us need to have for us to even have a conversation, because sometimes people are just saying out of fear, like I don't like AI, and then it feels obsolete or it feels uninformed. Or then there are people who are using like I'm all for AI, and they are not understanding all the ethical implications of the tools that they're using and how that tool is using data, and they're encouraging students to use that particular tool. So how do we as a collective, as educators who are thoughtful, who are critical, how do we make sure that we are having foundational common ground for everyone then to have a conversation around, this is how we should be thinking about it, this is how I should be recommending a tool, this is how I should have my assignments framed, all of that. So that we didn't talk about in the deck, but it's just again food for thought based on the comments earlier that was addressed. Again, on how AI accesses in it. Yes, Karen, absolutely. We can go back to the earlier slide. Let me escape and see.
Thank you.
No problem. I think it was here. Let me slideshow this. Yes. Did you have any questions, Karen, about this particular slide?
No, I also see it as an issue of equity, especially when we're considering preparing our students for the labor market by not preparing them in responsible ways. I think we also set them up for failure for getting a position.
Yeah, and the beauty of that, like if I were to take that one step further, is how do we give our students the tools and the knowledge and the resources, all of that, to be able to tell their bosses, like, have you considered this, right? Like, this is why I will not use it. I don't think that this is the right way to use it, or this is not the right tool. So that if they are not using it, then they are able to say, here's why, right? Because again, like if we look at environmental harm, and all the data centers that are coming up, like where can we, and global warming and all of those things, then how can we lay that out so that our students are aware of this and are able to speak to it, saying in the long term, this is what it's going to look like. Is this in line with our organization as a value for an efficient, like for a perceived efficiency, immediate efficiency, right? That's what it's all about. It's like, it feels like AI will do a 1 hour, 1 day's job in 1 hour. So that's perceived, that it's perceived efficacy and efficiency. But in the long run, it's going to impact us in this way. So yes, in the short term, it feels like a win to use AI, but in the long run, this is how it's going to impact our, like what we are working for in terms of our values, all of that. So yeah, I think great point. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We have 4 more minutes. We're happy to hang out. If you all want to go take a break before your next session, and I know there are breaks, happy to let you all go. Thank you again. Happy weekend. Be well. And please don't forget my PSAs at the beginning of the session. So take care, everyone.